I'm going to tie my halfback woven nymph, and I'm starting off with a size 10 scud hook in the vise, and I'm going to add some additional weight to this. I'll take some wraps here of my lead, and I'll just push those together. The thread that I'm going to use is an 8/0, and this is in a light olive. Although you can tie these in a lot of different color patterns, I'm going to tie this in a yellow and olive today. And so I'll just start the thread in front of the lead and then wrap it all the way back, and I'll trim the excess. This pattern has a rib to it. I'm going to use a small gold rib. So I'll break off maybe a 4-inch section or so, and I'll just tie that into the side behind the lead, and I'll wrap that all the way down the bend in the hook here. And back up, and the body material for this is a floss. And I use a 4-strand floss, but I'm only going to use three of the strands. And again, I'll tie this in a yellow and a light green or olive. So just setting them on the side, tying them all the way down. And it helps when you're dealing with multiple strands of floss to wet the ends. They'll stick together and tie in a little bit better, and I wet them again when I weave them. So I've got that good and tied in. Now I'm going to pick where I want my thorax to start, and it's going to be right about the point in the hook there, maybe a little bit beyond. And now at this stage, I'm going to tie in my wing casing, or my scud back, and this is going to be a fly specks olive and black. And you can tie this later on in the pattern, but I'm going to tie it in now. I just think it makes it a little bit more seamless with the weave. So I'm going to set it right on. I'm going to set it just on top there and tie it in. And then again, make sure I've got a smooth underbody before I start my weave. So just take a little extra time and make sure you've got good transition points here. And when I'm happy with that, then I'm just going to bring my thread up and whip finish it, and I'll remove the thread while I weave. So I'm going to rotate the vise upside down, and I'm going to have it facing me while I tie. So now I've rotated the vise and I have it facing me, and this is what it'll look like when you do it. So I've got my strands out to either side, and I've got my wire hanging out the back. I'm going to really saturate these strands of floss here so that they're easier to work with. And now I'm going to start my weave. So the yellow is going to be my bottom, so I'm going to take it underneath and then wrap the olive around, and then goes to the back, and then just keep repeating this process. So yellow underneath, green around. and behind. And so now I'm coming up to my thin skin, so I'm just going to hold both ends and I'll just push it back and then continue my weave in front of it. I'm just going to do a couple of these wraps. None of these will be exposed, they'll all be covered up. So now that I'm done, I'll just hold up to the top and rotate my vise back around again. So now you can see I've brought my vise back into a more traditional position, and I've got my strands of floss hanging down here, and I need to reattach my thread. So the easiest way to do that I found is to keep it pinched in your fingers here, pay out enough line or enough thread, and then just tie it off on top and underneath. And when you've gathered it, then you can come back through and trim the extra and then get it good and tied in. So now I'm just tying in the thorax just to make sure everything is down. And if you'd like to do it a different way, if you don't like weaving with this piece of thin skin on there, now would be the time to attach it and fold it over. But I think it just makes it a little bit more streamlined when it's woven in that way. Of course, you're going to be adding some material here, so it'll add some additional bulk. So now I can just bring my rib through, and just working within the segments that you created, just start bringing that wire all the way up through. And I always like to put one just at the thin skin there, and then I'll tie it off underneath. And then you can just break that. So now at this point I'm going to add in my thorax, and I'm going to use a hare's mask. So I'll take my dubbing wax and just apply that. Take my hare's mask here, and then start creating that dubbing noodle. And one more little pinch should do it. And then I'll try to peel that back so I've got a good tie-in point for my thin skin. And if needed to, you can adjust the hook position. And then I'll just pull this over and tie it in on top, and then a couple underneath here. And then when I'm comfortable it's not going to go anywhere, I'll trim this off. Try to get it as close to the thread as possible. And then I'll just finish building out that head And a couple of whip finishes here. And you can pick it out if you want it to be a little bit more buggy. And then I'll also put a drop of head cement on the threads so it's well protected. And then the floss itself at times can fray after you've taken a couple of fish, so if you'd like to come back with some Sally Hansen's hard as nails and coat that as well, give it some extra protection. So that is my halfback woven nymph. If you've seen the other one, I've got a full back as well. That goes, the thin skin's tied in before and goes the entire way up. Thus named the fullback, but this is just the halfback.